Yeah, Kerry, we just lost him.
Yeah, Bill, I lost him too. I lost
Okay.
him too.
Okay, I guess we just sit tight, Duke, and wait for her to come back on. Maybe she'll,
Okay.
why don't you call up there and tell them that we lost the system office. How are you doing, Duke?
I'm great, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing fine. Running a little ragged this morning.
Yeah.
Are you back?
Yes, I'm back. Sorry about that. Okay, we'll try again. Again, this is Laura Tibbetts in the system office, and with that, I'll turn it over to Chair Scott to begin the call.
Good morning and welcome to the telephonic planning and construction meeting for Tuesday, August the 2nd. The time is 11:03. Notice of this meeting was provided to the Secretary of State as required by Texas Government Code. Please note the audio of this meeting is being broadcast live. Before we take a roll call, would everyone please mute your phones unless you need to speak. Laura, let's begin with a roll call.
Okay, thank you. I'll start with you, Chair Scott.
Present.
Regent Austin.
Present.
Regent Lee.
Present.
I believe I saw Regent Flores on the call.
Yes, present.
Good morning, thank you. Do we have any other regents calling in? Okay, now I'll move to the system staff, starting with Chancellor McCall.
Here.
Daniel Harper.
Here.
Peter Moss.
Here.
Derek Alexander.
Here.
Sean Cunningham.
Here.
Carol Fox.
Here.
Nellie Herrera.
Here.
Pierce Mitchell.
Here.
Do we have any other system staff on the call? Oh, sorry, Mike went on mute. He's here. I'm looking right at him. Mike went on mute's on the call. Do we have anyone else? Okay, I'll move to our institutions, beginning with Lamar University.
This is Jaime Taylor at Lamar University, and I'm here with Bert Wagner and Catherine Miller.
Thank you. Sam Houston.
This is Elisa White.
And Amanda Withers.
Thank you, Amanda. Moving down to Sol Ross.
Good morning. This is Carlos Hernandez. I'm joined by Bonnie Albright and Bob Jacobs.
Thank you, President Hernandez. Texas State.
Kelly to emphasis here.
And Eric Alga.
Thank you. LIT.
Lonnie Howard, Rudy Gonzalez, and Angela Hill.
Thank you, President Howard. Moving down to Lamar State College Orange.
Mary Wicklund, Wendy Elmore, and Tom Johnson.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And finally, Lamar State College Port Arthur.
Good morning. This is Betty Renard and Mary Wicklund.
Thank you. And did I miss anyone on roll call? Okay, thank you.
And thank you, Laura. And thank you, everyone, for being with us this morning. Daniel and I had an opportunity to review the agenda prior to the meeting. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Daniel, who will present the Planning and Construction Committee agenda items. We have a short agenda today, and this shouldn't be too painful. Go ahead, Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we do have 4 items. We have no action items. We have 2 informational items and then a consent agenda. And while today's agenda is likely going to be short, I do promise you that we will pick up our pace here in the coming months as our projects are going to move from planning to design, and where the board will be reviewing the design development documents. So on page 303 is the quarterly planning and construction report. You can see that there's an executive summary of the activities. We're just shy of $1 billion, with 600 million of those in planning. And as you've seen before, those will go from planning to construction, planning, design, and then ultimately construction. Following the summary, there's an overview of all the projects above 1 million, and then following that, a short summary on each of those projects. Mr. Chairman, I'll take any questions on this item, and if none, I can move to our second informational item.
Any questions from the Board of Regents? from the Regent members. Go ahead, Daniel. I hear none.
All right, so the next item starts on page 334, and this is the annual campus condition report. As y'all recall, over a year ago, we engaged Gordian to provide third-party assessment of the conditions of all of our campuses. Gordian has completed their efforts with Sam Houston, Texas State, and the 3 state colleges so far, and Lamar and Sul Ross should be completed this coming fall. If you turn to page 338, you can see the report starting with Sam Houston State University. Gordian looks at 5 categories under backlog: asset protection, which is the preservation of the building; the economic opportunity, which is improvements in the efficiency of the building; program improvements, which is to improve the functionality; reliability, which is to avoid failure and interruptions; and then safety code, which is fire and life safety. From there, they also look at the exterior shell, or they break it down: exterior shell, interior shell or interior, services such as electrical and HVAC, equipment, which is elevators would be an example of that, and then site work, which is parking lots, sidewalks, etc. Overall, the findings from Gordian were that our institutions have made good efforts in addressing backlog as it's come through, and that there was nothing that was overly concerning to them. If you look at Sam Houston State, the backlog is less than 5% of the coordinating board's building replacement value. 75% of that is with asset protection, and then 30% is on exterior shell. So again, demonstrating that Sam Houston has made the efforts, and they have a backlog that would be expected, and they have strategies in place to continue to address that. Texas State is next. They can be found on page 342. Backlog is estimated around 6.5%. 55% of it is in asset protection, with 61% of that in services, which again, services is electrical, HVAC. Moving forward, you have LIT. LIT comes in at 4.5% and $6 million. 85% of that is identified, of the backlog is identified with services. And the committee may recall that the previous meeting, we approved the addition to the CIP to allow LIT to move forward with some needed HVAC repairs, which will make a good dent into that backlog. Lamar State College Orange, backlog is estimated at 5.5%, with 71% of that related to services. And I'll say of that, 28% of their total backlog is associated with the academic building, which is scheduled to be replaced with a new academic building over the next coming months and year. And lastly on our report is Lamar State College Port Arthur, which is a little higher at 11.6%. And again, 76% of that is with services, which is HVAC and electrical. Of the total, 24% is associated with Madison Monroe. And Dr. Renard actually has created a priority project to make some strides specifically on Madison Monroe. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my summary of this item, and open it up for any questions.
Okay, well, as an overview, the decision to hire Guardian was driven by some information that came to light that made us all believe that we needed more benchmarking. We used to call what Daniel's calling backlog, we used to call it deferred maintenance, and that was really what it was. It was maintenance that needed to be provided that hadn't been done, and at any rate, Duke, as our present chair, it became clear to me that we as regents needed to make a change in how this was being handled. Not that it wasn't being handled properly or anything, but at the end of the day, by hiring Guardian, we basically have a third party that's benchmarking this, and we as the regents have this report that you have in front of you that we can refer to instead of it coming from each campus and each one not necessarily being the same, and then also the fact that it's an in-house review instead of a third-party review. So I'm really happy that Daniel has worked through this, found the right party to do this, and that we're now getting product out of that we can all refer to and be comfortable with. But with those comments, is there anything that anyone else would like to add, or any questions? This is new to the construction committee from the standpoint of we're just now getting this in place and starting to get product back from this vendor.
Yeah, Bill, I like it. I mean, I think it's a good check. I would just say just an overarching comment. I do think commodity pricing still, I mean, we're in the business, we see it, we think it's all moving the other way down. So I just would make that comment, Daniel. I don't know how to deal with that at this point, but maybe something we think through.
Yes, sir. That's welcome news.
I'm
Amen.
scared if you're locking in pricing and stuff, we're seeing it go the other way. I mean, pretty rapidly. So I don't know.
Yeah. And that'll be something.
I agree. Yeah, I agree, Duke. It looks like everything peaked in mid-June, and it's almost across the board. Everything we look at, steel, copper, oil, everything. But that's okay. You know, I mean, these guys are going to give us these recommendations and everything, but there's another step in here in terms of going out for you know, I mean, I didn't like going out for bids like you and I are used to.
Yeah.
It's a different process, but at the end of the day, you know, we will get there are bidders down the chain of command on it, and anyway. But anyone else like to make any comment?
Hey, Daniel, could they add like a commodity indexing when you get them to give the reviews? Guardian?
Yeah. I'll talk to Gordian about that as they kind of.
It's pretty easy. There's if you need something, I'm happy to give it to them. But I think it would be helpful just to say what's the pricing of our major indexes like steel and stuff that we're using, just as a check.
Yes, sir. Perfect. Thank you.
Just a comment. Yep. That's all I had, Bill.
Anyone else? Don, you know, you're good enough to come and be with us. We'd sure be happy to hear any comments you may have.
Thank you, Chair Scott, but I'm like the rest of us, just learning.
Okay, very good. Well, Daniel, I think with that, let's move on, and we all look forward to your continuing this and bringing it forward as the additional reports become available.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So our last on the consent agenda is we have one addition to the current CIP. It's at Texas State University. It's for the marching band building. This project is estimated to exceed the $1 million limit, and so Texas State wanted to put that on the CIP. And then we have 3 projects for the CIP for starting next fiscal year. LIT has some campus upgrades they want to do, and it's right under or pushing $1 million, and so they wanted to include that just in case. And then Texas State has two other repairs they want to add to next fiscal year. It's Medina Hall renovation and then the Jowers roof replacement. Those are $1.2 million and $1.5 million respectively. And Mr. Chairman, that concludes my layout of the consent agenda items, and happy to entertain any questions.
Are there any questions on the consent agenda items? Are there any other comments from anyone on the board? All right, hearing none, I want to thank everyone for being on the call this morning, and we'll conclude our telephonic meeting today. And for the record, the time is 11:18. I look forward to being with all of you next week, and thank you again.
Thank you, Bill. Look forward to seeing everybody.
Thank you.
You bet.
Thank
Good
you.
day.
Thank you.
Thank you.